Philosophy is fundamental to everyone. On some level, we all philosophize because it is in our nature to ponder the meaning of our lives and the world around us. The process of meaningful thought allows us to question things, develop ideas, and ultimately progress as a society. This is represented in the Greek word for philosophy, philosophia, which translates to love for wisdom. For thousands of years, some of the greatest philosophers have contributed thoughts and insights that have influenced developments in science, learning, governments, societies, human relationships. There have been so many notable philosophers over the years, but who are the truly great philosophers? The thinkers whose ideas provoked change and opened up completely new possibilities. The first records of the most influential philosophers go all the way back to ancient Greece and China. In ancient Greece, Socrates is considered to be one of the most important philosophers in history, as his ideas laid the foundation for Western philosophy. Similarly, in China, the teachings of Confucius laid the foundation for Eastern philosophy. In fact, he was so influential that many regard Confucianism as both a religion and a philosophy. Let's take a look at both, and then work our way forward. Socrates was born in 469 BCE. While he didn't write down any of his ideas, his followers and students took note of his speeches before publishing them and spreading the word. Socrates' philosophy was based on the pursuit of an ethical and moral life. He was particularly interested in how to best live one's life. He believed that in order to live a good life, one had to develop moral virtues, such as justice, courage, and wisdom. Socrates was especially focused on the acquisition of knowledge, as he believed that through wisdom came true virtue. These ideas were massive inspirations for his followers, one of whom was also able to become one of the great philosophers as well, Plato, but we'll come back to him later. Confucius lived from 551 to 479 BCE, and his philosophy still shapes much of the culture in East Asian countries, including China, Taiwan, Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. However, many of his ideas are applicable to any society, for Confucius was dedicated to the pursuit of living a virtuous life. Not unlike Socrates, Confucius was focused on people becoming their best possible selves, while also living harmoniously with others. His disciples and students wrote down his musings on how to build good character, and they've been a mainstay of several cultures ever since. Perhaps the foundation of Confucius's teachings is the classic notion that we should not do unto others what you would not want others to do unto you. He also believed that education was the key to developing wisdom, which in turn led to virtue. If a person was virtuous, that would enhance social harmony, which was paramount in his ideas. The concept of harmonious group is one that is central to many East Asian cultures, where the cooperative group is considered more important than the individual. Getting back to Greece, Plato lived from 428 to 347 BCE, and is regarded as the father of Western philosophy. He was a prolific writer and wrote many detailed essays on a broad range of topics, from government and education to reality, truth, and nature. Plato was especially interested in the theory of reality, which he wrote about extensively in his most famous book, The Republic. In it, he reasons that the physical world is not actually the real world, and instead our ultimate reality exists beyond our physical world. Another theme that gripped Plato was the concept of everyone having to balance their moral soul. He thought that each person had the power to determine right from wrong. In order to become truly morally centered humans, Plato was opposed to the Greek style of democracy and argued for a more inclusive society, where every person works for the whole of society. This included a greater sharing of wealth and increased status of women. Following in the steps of Socrates and Plato came arguably the greatest philosopher of them all, Aristotle. Aristotle lived from 384 to 322 BCE, and his ideas and his theories have helped to shape future civilizations right up until the present day. To say he was a prolific thinker is a bit of an understatement. Aristotle contributed groundbreaking insights into the fields as diverse as metaphysics, ethics, logic, the mind, science, moral philosophy, moral psychology, political philosophy, and aesthetics. He was also the first true empirical scientist that we know of. He recognized and introduced these specific scientific fields: biology, chemistry, botany, physics, embryology, zoology. After distinguishing these different fields, Aristotle then performed a comprehensive studies and documentation work that is still relevant today. In 350 CE in Alexandria, Egypt, one of the world's first brilliant mathematicians was born. She was Hypatia, daughter of the famed Egyptian philosopher Theon. Hypatia lived in a time when the woman's role in society was decidedly minor, yet she overcame these prejudices to establish herself as one of the greatest minds of her time. Hypatia was a revered public speaker, a mathematician, an astronomer, a teacher. She taught the principles of mathematics and astronomy and introduced the astrolabe, which was used to help ships navigate. She wrote algebraic formulas, broke down mathematic basics for the masses, and developed devices used for measuring fluids. As we enter the Middle Ages, St. Augustine of Hippo and his theological philosophy shaped the path for much of medieval and modern Christian beliefs. St. Augustine was born in 354 CE in what is now Algeria. He traveled and wrote extensively about a wide range of topics, ranging from evil versus good, the pursuit of wisdom, God and creation, and the workings of the mind. Augustine firmly believed that a true philosopher is a lover of God because true wisdom is aligned with God. Like some of the great philosophers before him, Augustine also taught the importance of creating unity and peace in society. He wrote that by understanding God, people could acquire the wisdom needed to create what he called a social love. While a large amount of Augustine's philosophy was centered around the human relationship with God, he was also fascinated with the workings of the body and the mind. This was very much the focus of another of the great philosophers, René Descartes. Descartes was born in France in 1596, and he's often been credited as the father of modern philosophy. One of his major teachings was known as mind-body dualism. This explored the notion that the human mind and body are completely distinct from each other. Descartes saw the mind as a thinking thing that was an immaterial matter. It was a separate entity to the physical being, or the body. He then argued that the two could theoretically exist without each other. Descartes was also fascinated with the notion of discovering real truth. That is, truth without any doubt. He concluded that if he was aware of his own thoughts, then there was no doubt of his existence. This theory led to one of philosophy's most famous and quoted quotes, "I think, therefore I am." In the 17th century, John Locke established himself as one of the most influential political philosophers of the modern era. The English philosopher helped pave the way for liberalism with his famous writing, The Two Treatises of Government. In this, he disputed the claim that all people are subjects to a monarch, and that every person has the right to life, liberty, and property. Locke was a strong proponent of limited government. He conceded that while some form of government was necessary, everyone was entitled to a stable and comfortable life without too much government intervention. Locke's views on a system of liberty for the people strongly influenced the founding charter of the United States and other democracies. Immanuel Kant lived from 1724 to 1804 and was another of the great modern philosophers. One of Kant's major beliefs was of human autonomy. He reasoned that human understanding comes from the laws of nature, which lead to all of our experiences and perceptions of the world. Kant went on to explain that scientific knowledge, morality, and religious belief are all sound because they're based on human autonomy. Friedrich Nietzsche was a 19th century German philosopher who was also interested in the concept of morality. Nietzsche famously wrote that God is dead, arguing that the development of science and technology was killing Christianity. In one of his most well-known books, Beyond Good and Evil, he proposes that the morality that we know and live by is no longer relevant in the modern world. As we move into the modern era, Simone de Beauvoir is surely one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century, and I might have butchered the name, but we're going to roll past that. Born in France in 1908, they were a novelist, feminist, activist, prolifically on a person's absolute freedom of choice and the responsibility and consequences that come with it. She emphasized the importance of choice being derived from individual spontaneity, not outside forces. Finally, no mention of great philosophers would be complete without Ludwig Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein claimed that the structure of language mirrors the structure of reality. He saw language as a form of life. He was fascinated with how language is used and how it represents the world around us. He thought that people reflect the world they know through their language, saying, "The limits of my language means the limits of my world." These are just some of the world's great philosophers. There have been and will continue to be many more. Could be you too. Their theories and ideas have significantly helped to shape the world that we live in today. It's exciting to imagine how the philosophers and thinkers of the future might continue to ask questions, offer insights, and change the way we see the world around us.